Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast. I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We are, of course, a Blue Wire podcast. Joining me today, the KCRA 3, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I am doing peachy, James. How are you? How are you and Brenden this fine summer day?
I'm good. Let's introduce Brenden. Of course, we have Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I am doing well. Just got back from a trip down to Southern California. I crossed off 2 more baseball stadiums. I don't know that getting to all of them is necessarily bucket list for me, but if I'm in the area, I'm going to go. And Petco, phenomenal. I know everybody says it, but oh my God, beautiful. Also sold out on a Tuesday, and it was like Juan Soto's return, and they were booing them, so maybe that added to it. But my impression is that they love their Padres down there, and it was a great time. Can't complain.
They had an incredible owner who got sick and decided to go for broke and win a championship before he was gone, and spent a ton of money, and then he of course did not make it. So that's unfortunate, but that team is really, really good. This is all recent, right? Just absolutely crazy baseball. It's developed into a crazy baseball town.
Yeah, and you got Mason Miller down there talking about the difference in playing games there, walking out compared to here in Sacramento, and yeah, can only imagine the difference.
Yeah. I think I would probably rather play for a sold out crowd than a sold out 35 or 40,000 person crowd than a sold out or partially sold 11,000 seat baseball field.
Oh, and it's also San Diego. I mean, that's hard to compete with. But also, look at the trade deadline that they had. I mean, they're going for it, man. They pushed all the chips in, having that aggressive owner alive or not. Whoever's in charge now, they just pushed everything in. They're ready to give those dirty Dodgers a run. Meanwhile, my Giants are just sitting there twiddling thumbs.
They suck. Yeah,
they got to learn how to run on the bases first. It's like Little League right now.
Oh, yeah, wow. The A's have had a lot of Little League moments this year. A ton of Little League moments.
Nick Kurtz running into Shea the other day.
Oh, yeah.
That was a fun one.
Yep. They've had a bunch between third base and left field where the ball just drops because the third baseman had never played third base and the left fielder had never played left field. Yeah, tough stuff. Tough. The Mason Miller trade, that was crazy because, I mean, anytime you're able to land a top 3 or top 5 prospect in Major League Baseball, that's pretty good. You guys got podcast candles going?
I do. The official podcast.
Mine were already rolling. So, it is rather hot though. I did not pick that up.
Yeah,
getting down to the end here. That's all right.
All right.
I went all 3 wicks. Do you light all 3?
Or do you I have a single wick.
You're a single wick guy. Yeah,
I do have a 3-wick one. Except this one is more citrus, and I don't like citrus candles. It doesn't do it for me.
Oh, that's weird. The smell of citrus in the morning. Yeah. Brenden doesn't the smell of napalm in the morning.
You wouldn't know what movie that was either.
No, of course not.
Wouldn't have known movie reference.
He doesn't even know what napalm is.
Probably not.
Don't ask me to explain, but vague idea.
Okay.
Yeah. It's basically the equivalent. Well, you can make napalm. Styrofoam and gasoline make napalm.
Jesus.
When's the last time you did that, James?
Yeah, he's up in his hideaway in the hills.
I never have, but one of my buddies, when he was young, he was showing his sister and thought it would be a bright idea to show his sister how gasoline eats through a styrofoam cup. And then it got down to the very end, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to light it on fire just because I think that's cool." And all the fumes had settled around his legs. So when he lit a match, it caught his pants on fire, and he got 2nd-degree burns all over his legs. Yeah, not good. Yeah. So don't do that.
All right.
The more you know.
PSA for everyone out there.
His pants were on fire. Was he telling tales out of
yeah. I think it might have even in certain spots it was 3rd-degree burns and melted his pants to his legs. Yeah, it wasn't good. Yeah.
Good morning.
That'll teach you. Yeah,
it will.
So what's going on, everybody?
Opening we've had in a while. You want to talk about your stomach issues, James? just to get it out the way.
I've had stomach issues the last 4 days. That's why we didn't pod on Saturday. I just wasn't feeling good. So yeah,
Did you
we're
have that
back.
drink the water in Mexico kind of thing?
Something like I don't know. No, I
Did
think
you?
it was like my protein shakes that I've been eating, like drinking. I got just one with a weird ingredient that didn't sit well with me. So yeah, weird stuff. That's that's what happens when you get old, Sean.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. James, I noticed Brennan has a new Angels hat. Brennan, so when you go to a new stadium, did you get a new like Padres hat as well?
I
And is
did. We just
that's a
went
thing?
basic with the Padres.
Well, the podcast works when you speak into the
Yeah,
mic.
I realized after
There we
we
go.
went basic with the
Ooh,
Padres.
old school
Hey.
Padres. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's pretty
I
good.
will. Yeah, I'm down for any team except a Dodgers hat.
How many
And
stadiums have you been to now?
6, all the California ones, and then we got Seattle. I think is that 6? What am I missing?
Did you ever go to Oakland?
I did do Oakland.
Okay, so that at least puts you at 7 because you got to count Sutter Health.
If we're counting both, then yeah, I guess 7.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Yeah, big
To an
difference
LA
between the
day.
Angel Stadium and Petco, I will say. Attendance, stadium itself. Did see Trout get his 1,000th RBI, which was pretty cool. Took my little brother to that game, and walking in, he's like, "How many home runs do you think Trout's going to hit today?" I'm like trying to temper his expectations, and we got one. So
What'd you think of Angel Stadium?
it was nice. I mean, like the stadium itself is not as bad as I feel like everybody just craps on that stadium, and I thought it was fine. But I mean, big comparison, big difference between like Seattle, San Diego, San Francisco, obviously. But I mean, the biggest standout is that I paid $5 for tickets at Angels Stadium and
Sounds
$50
right.
for way worse seats at Petco. So
Wow. Okay. That's crazy. Well, let's get into this. Number one, thanks for tuning into the King Speed podcast. Jump on board with the King Speed. Go to thekingspeed.com if you don't mind. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Give us ratings and reviews and all that stuff. All of that helps in the grand scheme of the interweb. We're in the dog days of summer. But the Kings are stuck in this merry-go-round, and I don't know how much we've discussed it because it didn't really seem all that real, and then all of a sudden it was real, and then all of a sudden it's not real again. But where are we at with the Jonathan Kuminga chase and this complicated transaction that the Sacramento Kings are still trying to pull off, but it just keeps having more turns and twists and all that stuff?
In fairness, I don't think it was ever. In fairness, I don't think it was ever close. Like I think that's the overarching theme. Like, sure, there's been a ton of reports and there's been a lot of chatter and there's been people getting their hopes up, but the reality is, I feel like, at least from my understanding of things, it's all it's just all is what it is. Like yes, has offers have they changed? Being close, I don't think that's never been anything illustrated to me in any way, shape, or form, despite some reporting out there. But that's at least just my look on this thing. But yeah, I don't think Jonathan Kuminga will be a member of the Sacramento Kings.
Brenden?
yeah, I mean, to me, and this is more reading tea leaves than any sort of reporting, but it feels like the Kings are just trying to jump on what they think could be an opportunistic scenario, where if Golden State were to be looking to move on from him, that this is a guy where the Kings don't have much internal growth and upside when it comes to young players. Jonathan Kuminga is still 22. He's younger than anybody they drafted. And so I think that it almost feels like more hypothetical upside. Like the athleticism's there, but there's a reason Golden State was not playing this guy for times throughout the season. You know, people will point to the big game he had against Minnesota in the playoffs, but while he can score, there were inefficiencies for most of the times he did get on the floor, and not playing is for stretches like that, I think, is the biggest tell about how they feel about how he is as a player and his level of production. But right now they do kind of hold all the cards. They can, essentially force him to say, hey, you're going to either accept this crappy deal that they have on the table for him, or he's going to sign the qualifying offer and try to bet on himself, which obviously comes with a lot of risk, because what if it's the exact same scenario where he's not playing that much? How much money is going to be out there in the open market? And he would get a no trade clause if he were to accept that qualifying offer, which lets him control that a little bit. But for the most part, to me, it feels like the Kings are just attempting to jump on a situation where they think they could get a little bit of upside on their roster, even if, to me, the fit and how he goes with the current roster more so goes out the window. It kind of feels like you're attempting to jump on, again, just a guy that has some upside that could be something down the line, while not committing all that much in the immediate, while you're still trying to move off of DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, whether that's this year, next year. But it feels like they are more so trying to jump on a situation where, hey, this is a 22-year-old, there's potential, there's upside, and so maybe we should take a swing. But again, if Golden State is not happy with that offer, which seems to be the case at this point, I don't think there's any reason for the Kings to be like, oh, we need to get this guy, let's go put that unprotected first on the table. In my mind, that doesn't make much sense from the Kings' perspective, just for the right to sign a guy. So again, feels like they're trying to just look at where they can find potential upside on this roster, but it doesn't seem like there's a desperation from the Kings to go and get this guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna I disagree a little bit with who holds the power in this situation. I don't think anyone has any leverage at all. Anyone. I don't think the Kings have any leverage. I don't think the Warriors have any leverage, and I don't think Kuminga has any leverage. The Warriors are
in the short term, the Warriors have the leverage.
Not
in
really.
In the long term, it's Kuminga, because, and the reason I say that is the Warriors have the leverage because they can just essentially they can basically say, bet Jonathan Kuminga, go find a deal, right? And that hasn't happened yet. So as these days get closer to training camp and the pressure mounts, like, the ultimate resolve is for him to go back and bet on himself and choose that pathway, if you will, because he's a restricted free agent. And this is what we talk about. This is with people not having money, like, restricted free agency is not ideal. But in the long run, it's Jonathan Kuminga, because the Warriors could be left not getting a damn thing for him. And so, to your point, they don't have leverage, but they do in the short term, to where he comes back and they can maybe figure it out in midseason. But in the short term,
but they don't, because if he
right,
just says, "Fine, I'm going to play for the qualifying offer," kiss my ass.
And no one's gonna like give up. They're still not gonna get a much for him at that point. So,
well, no, if he
yeah,
signs a qualifying offer, he has zero.
Right,
he has a no trade clause, and he can tell them to kick rocks all season long.
And it might be if they know he's going to sign the qualifying, like they're waiting on that. And if they know he's going to do that, then okay, prior to you doing that, we're going to take one of these deals.
Yeah. Well, that, and I mean, the Warriors, the other offer that they're giving him right now is like the biggest BS offer of all time. They're offering him a 2-year deal, but part of the 2-year deal is a team option for year 2. And what a team option for year 2 means is that it's not a guaranteed 2-year contract. So again, he gets a no trade clause, because if he's traded in the first year when he doesn't have a guaranteed second year, his Larry Bird rights dissolve. And that's the same exact thing with qualifying offer. He can't be traded without his consent, because if he is traded, then his Larry Bird rights dissolve instantly when he's traded. So that means if he goes to another team, let's say the Kings, and this is why midseason trade for him is not going to happen. If he goes to let's say the Kings trade for him midseason, they say, finally the Warriors go, okay, let's just do this thing. And he's either playing for the qualifying offer or he's playing on the 1-year deal. His bird rights don't transfer. So the Kings would get to the summer and not be able to sign him. All they would be able to sign him to is a $14 or $15 million mid-level exception for next year. And they'd be totally like, okay, we got a player for like 5 minutes and now he's gone because, we helped him build up his value, and away he goes.
Without offloading contracts on your current roster to free up more room.
Yeah.
And none of the appeal of Kuminga is short term.
No.
Well, I mean,
maybe not none. Like they lack depth at the 4, and sure, but like he's not. I don't think Kuminga's helping you win more games this year.
Well, I mean, I think if
future.
Sorry, if Kuminga walks in the door, you're expecting him to be like a 20-point per game scorer year one. Like he's a 5th-year NBA player. We're not expecting. I mean, or 18 points per game. I mean, he averaged
not on the
16.
Kings.
It's just
Not
where
on the
the
Kings.
touch is.
You're playing with DeRozan and Levine and guys like. I mean, I don't think so.
He's starting.
He's absolutely gonna start, and I think to your point earlier, it's a move to your future, and I think he would become a piece like that. But year one, I don't think you're looking at him as a 20-point scorer. If that happens, I mean, whatever. But I mean, I just don't. I don't. They want him to address a need on the roster. They want to see star potential out of him. They want to give him all the opportunity that you can get in day one. But I don't think that the expectation of being a first year starter and then becoming this 20-point sensation, like whatever, I just don't think that would happen with the, and that has more to do with the pieces that would surround him than it would of his ability.
Yeah, that's the interesting part to me here is the whole, Kuminga's interested in what's the role that Sacramento's offering. But like you're just talking about, I mean, there's so many other guys that are going to have the ball in their hands. And even if they are not part of the long-term plan and Kuminga is, that doesn't mean that just because you're planning to trade DeMar doesn't mean that DeMar's not getting his touches in the meantime, and so I don't know. To me, we're past this point probably, and maybe it gets revisited, but I always thought like a Utah or a Brooklyn would have made sense where like really get to go spread your wings and see what sort of number one option you can become, because like the playmaking is not really there to keep an offense within a flow, as a secondary option. Like I see the potential of, okay, you're playing with Domas, there's cutting involved and Domas can set you up, but like the spacing is really bad with that lineup, and you add Dennis Schroeder into that, the spacing is even worse. And so I don't know, like to me, the fit in the short term on the Kings is pretty messy there.
Well, and also, I mean, he's not like a guy who just gets downhill, takes someone off the dribble, like someone like DeRozan and someone like Levine can. These guys can just up the court, ball handle, get into the paint and score. Like Kuminga doesn't really do that. So, there's other ways for him to score.
Kuminga can score. I mean, and
no,
we're
he
talking
can
about
score,
a guy
but not like
15,
create
16
your own
points a game in 24 minutes. His per 36 is like 22, 23 points per game. And again, if you're going to take his 24 minutes on a team that he did not fit on at all last year and equate that to what he would do in 32 minutes as a starting power forward, it's tough to think that he wouldn't be around 20 points per game. I mean, like, look at, I don't think that he's like a high efficiency guy. I think you're going to have, I totally agree with Brendan's, with the spacing issue. That's going to be a huge issue. But that doesn't mean it's not a talent upgrade from what you're going to walk into the season now. And I think maybe the biggest piece to all of that is if you were able to land Kuminga, it pushes Keegan Murray to the 3, which I think is more of his natural position anyways. And, then you would have some switchable defending forwards, plus a lot more athleticism in your starting lineup. Like I'm not a Kuminga guy at all. Like I haven't been throughout his career, but I still see a pathway where, given the appropriate minutes and the appropriate role, where he wouldn't thrive in year one and as a 23-year-old, but a 5th-year NBA player with tons of experience, where he wouldn't excel at least a little bit. That would at least be your hope that that's what you're getting.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think the other part of the Keegan thing, though, while, having that forward core of Keegan and Kuminga is fairly appealing, even if you don't have a star necessarily between the two, unless Kuminga becomes one, is that Keegan also moves down the pecking order offensively, you would assume, as we lose James a little bit here. But like, we're talking about Kuminga being one of the few guys that would give them some internal growth options. Like Keegan is your other primary one, and you're probably leading to even less touches for Keegan in that scenario.
Yeah, I would think so. It's kind of funny, man. Like I know the desire to see Keegan as a 3, and I can't, for the YouTube listener, we're still here. James will be back. But it's almost, it's funny because there is people who have this a divide, right? I don't think if you poll 50 people, I think you might be a complete split into whether people see Keegan as a 3 or a 4. And obviously the desire is there to want to see him as a 3 and pair him with somebody like Kuminga, who is strictly a 4. But this is what I would call a little bit of untapped territory to strictly see him as a 3 if they were to go in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fit question is going to be there, especially if DeMar's still around. If you're not moving on from DeMar, but I also it's just a complicated transaction. Like I think, a lottery protected or a top 10 or top 8 protected pick probably makes sense for Kuminga, a future, protected pick. But also just the way the salary structure works out. Like if you're trading Malik Monk, that's one thing, and it puts a lot of onus on the Golden State Warriors to go and trade either Buddy Hield or to trade Moses Moody, because they're going to have to clear up space and be part of, to make the deal work. I also think there's a way that deal could be flipped around, where the Kings go back to what they were originally offering, which is, Devin Carter and Dario Saric. And in that situation, the Kings are the ones who have to find a place for $10 million to go to. And either way, whoever gets stuck with that gap, that $10 million gap, whether it's the Warriors or it's the Kings, there's going to have to be something of value that goes to that team to take on whatever it is you're trying to peddle. And, I think, again, Moses Moody would be super simple. You could probably not even take anything back from a team like Brooklyn to give them Moses Moody. They'd probably just accept his salary. Buddy Hield, I don't think that would be the case. You're probably going to have to give up a second round pick, maybe even 2, because Buddy's got 2 years. Well, I think he's got 3 years left on his contract. So, again, it's going to be a little weird, what they have to do here. But yeah, I don't think it's dead. I think this will literally provide content for the next week or 2. I don't believe the Warriors people that talked to Tim Kawakami yesterday and said, hey, look, Jonathan Kuminga is going to open the season on the roster and everything else. Because if I'm Kuminga, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just playing for the qualifying offer and getting the hell out of there. I'm not giving them any leverage at all. And I know that's flushing some money down the toilet, but I'd rather do that than to be stuck in the position where they control your fate for another season, even after this year. Because by the time you get done with that, you might not have any value at all.
No, his future is unrestricted free agency if he's not dealt. That beyond this season, I have zero. So there's zero faith in seeing him in a Warriors uniform, barring something crazy beyond this beyond this season. I fully anticipate him being an unrestricted free agent, and I think that's where he ultimately wants to be.
It's a shitty spot for him to be in. For sure, he could have helped himself out better if he was just more productive. But right now, you take that qualifying offer, bet on yourself. It's not all within your control still. It's still how much opportunity are you going to be given on this team. And from what you saw last year, probably not going to be much. And if you have another year like that, then is 20 million still on the table for him annually? I don't know.
Probably not.
Well, and what I would argue is I think the best thing for him and the Kings is when I say I don't think Kuminga will be on the, I mean for this year. I do think the Kings have set the table well for something in the future, but I just don't see a pathway right now. And from people I've talked to, it just never has ever seemed close at any point. And that's not from a desire from Kuminga. It's not from a desire from the Kings. It's just the Warriors hold so many of the cards when it comes to the pathway to Sacramento this upcoming season. And that's why there's really nothing close. But if you've set the table and you've put a solid foundation of a desire to attract that player, get to restricted free agency as James laid out, if you do offload some contracts, which is very foreseeable because, we'll talk about the 27 cliff for this team. This roster could look dramatically different at that point. So my whole thing is if there's a big Jonathan Kuminga fan who wants to see him in, purple and black in Sacramento, I just don't see it this season, but certainly it could be an option for the future.
To the Malik Monk piece of all this, Malik Monk is a more productive player right now than Jonathan Kuminga, right?
100%.
Yeah. I don't know who has the most talent, who's the biggest upside.
The biggest ceiling would be Jonathan Kuminga because he's so much younger.
Right. Yeah. I just find it interesting from the Warriors' perspective. I think Malik Monk would really help them out. I think that they need another playmaker. Yeah. There's a lot of reliance right now on obviously Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, but then you need Brandon Podziemski this year to be able to facilitate an offense a little bit and sort of run things. And obviously we've seen Malik be able to do that. I think he's a pretty underrated playmaker. And it's just an interesting aspect of all this to me, because I think Malik would help that team out a good bit, but they'd have to do some maneuvering like you laid out, James.
Yeah, I think Malik would be their third best player. I mean, I don't think he'd be that far off. I mean, like Malik brings a ton to the table. And that's one thing that like I get it, because they're going to have to make a move to clear up more space, right? But acquiring Malik Monk takes care of two things. Number one, it gets you a better player than what you have right now. It gets you a player who fits what you're trying to do and not a player who doesn't want to be there, right? So that's the first thing. But the other thing it does is it preserves that $20 million salary that they're looking for, right? Because that's part of this deal. That's why they're offering a 2-year, $45 million deal. It's not because they want Kuminga around for $22.5 million or $20 million plus raises. It's very specific. It's because if there's a bigger trade, a bigger fish that becomes available, they want to package a player and then add that to, again, Moody or Heald and go get someone else. And as of right now, they can't really do that. And so, it's really kind of unfair for Kuminga, because they're just looking at him as a trade chip. They're not looking at him as a basketball player. And I mean, that's the way the NBA works. But I also look at Malik Monk and go, man, if you could get your hands on Malik, like let's say Giannis becomes available. And I'm not saying that Giannis is going to become available or the Warriors can get that. But the fact that you have $20 million in Malik Monk to offer as part of the deal that goes there, that's not prohibitive. Like his contract isn't bad for what he brings. And to be honest with you, he would start right now for Milwaukee, and he certainly would start if you traded Giannis Antetokounmpo and were, trying to find scorers to throw in the starting lineup. But it's the combination of that $20 million salary, and then on top of that, whatever pick you're getting from the Kings that would actually help you to acquire one of those players. And that's what it feels like. The Warriors are trying to acquire some big giant fish by using Kuminga as just again, a discount coupon that they have hiding on their bench that they want to trade mid-season. And he's like, well, what does that help me? Because if, again, they traded mid-season, he doesn't get his bird rights. And that means that, what do you do it for? There's no reason for him to turn down and to accept a trade somewhere else at all. Complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. I would just point out that this is more reflective of the situation financially than it is of him as a player. Because if you made him remove the restricted free agency thing, if he wasn't a restricted free agent and he was merely a player who had 2 years remaining on his deal, or even a year remaining on his deal, I think the things would look considerably different. If he was like a De'Aaron Fox type player who was going into an extension scenario, things would look dramatically different in terms of interest for him throughout the league.
Yeah. Well, that, and I mean, what you talked about earlier, Sean, there's no way for the Kings to clear enough cap space to sign him outright as a free agent.
Well, you mean for next year?
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Sure
It doesn't matter if DeMar falls off the books, anything else. No, because Keegan Murray's contract kicks in for next season.
Sure, but let's say you move Zach LaVine.
Okay, but you're going to take back, you've got just to move Zach, you're going to have to take between 38 and 42 million bucks back in salary.
I feel like, Sean, you're doing the anything is possible here.
Yes, I mean, nothing is finite. And again, how many times we say it? Things change dramatically, very quickly. So
yeah. Let's have a little bit.
Thing is sign and trade, just like DeMar DeRozan. There's possibility of sign and trade as an unrestricted free agent. So that's becoming more and more likely now than it was even before the aprons and the collective bargaining agreement. You're seeing more and more sign and trades, where we went from a point where you'd see a slew of sign and trades in an offseason to where you saw none, and now you're starting to see it again because no one has any fucking room.
Yeah, no, the salary cap situation is absolutely horrific. And the salary cap is only going up 7% next year instead of 10. That's what they're projecting right now, and that's a mess.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, somebody needs to do some creative accounting here because none of that makes any sense with the new television deal that they've worked out, and I'm wondering where all this money's going. So yeah, really, really interesting situation.
James is bored himself. Look at
The
that.
big yawn.
Yawns are contagious. Look, Brenden just got hit.
Yeah, let's discuss what like the unrestricted free agent, like what this whole entire offseason. It's really been held up by the aprons. I mean, this is the strangest like outcome that I think any of us. No one expected this summer to look like this, right?
Well, I did. I'll be honest. I did from a restricted free agency standpoint because I didn't think we'd be August 5th to where you haven't really seen
Any?
any movement as opposed to not much movement. But I think
Yeah.
I was anticipating a slew of activity, but the restricted free agencies would be at a stare off, which was basically what's happening. The one I didn't anticipate was Josh Giddey. I thought that would be wrapped up very, very quickly. And so, but I did. I mean, people I talked to, like, nobody wants to have restricted free agency. It's just a awful, awful situation for both the team and the player, but most of the player, and especially with nobody having room to go sign offer sheets, and no one's going to clear the books to try to sign an offer sheet only to see it get matched. So it's just not desirable. And if you can avoid it, you do all parties, in my opinion, the biggest compliment to what their future can hold. And that's why, when we talk about somebody like Keon Ellis and the path that he took, Keon Ellis wasn't a lottery pick. Keon Ellis wasn't a highly sought after lottery pick. I mean, his path to the league is, overcoming all sorts of hurdles and obstacles and swamps and monsters and all that kind of stuff, only for him to be able to come out and shine. And having somebody like that within your organization, like, both sides want to make sure that they stay together, but they also realize what the roster looks like, and they also realize that that restricted free agency is staring them dead in the face. So it just kind of an is what it is situation right now, and you just have to get beyond that year for things to happen. And unfortunately for Keon, a lot can happen in 1 year. I mean, GMs get fired, coaches get fired. The whole the whole path of the franchise can be steered off course. So that looks like it probably won't happen from this year to next summer. But this summer, I mean, this is something I expected a whole slew of movement, which wasn't. I wouldn't call it a slew. I think it was probably more of a 2.5 out of 5 stars if you want to talk about movement around free agency and just the offseason in general. But as it pertained to those restricted free agents, I thought this would be pretty similar to what we had. I just didn't think it would be this bad to where you have essentially nothing.
Yeah, I think the Giddey one stands out. Like, Cam Thomas is obviously a little bit of a weird one. I think that guys in his archetype in general, their value seem to be going down a little bit, where it's this hyper scorer, 6-man sort of. I mean, Malik Monk, the way that his value is being talked about, I think Jordan Clarkson is a good example of that as well. But one of the weird ones to me is Quentin Grimes too. I feel like is kind of an under talked about one in all of this. A 3-and-D role player, and while on the other end of the Cam Thomas thing, like, that archetype seems to be gaining value, and they've yet to settle on something there in a Philadelphia spot that needs some depth. So, Kuminga is definitely not the only one going through these struggles, even if his situation is definitely the loudest and most present when it comes to like relevancy to the Kings as well.
Yeah, I think it's the loudest for one specific reason. All the other guys like play a guard position. And to be honest with you, there isn't a team that's going after them outside of their own team. And so it just leaves this weird situation where, again, like, a team doesn't have to match, right? Sean, you brought it up. Like, if Brooklyn was out there, like, just trying to mess with everybody, I mean, they could sign Josh Giddey to a monster offer sheet and then just wait and see if the Bulls match. And if they match, then go to Quentin Grimes and then go sign him to an offer sheet.
And to be honest, as it pertains to Giddey, they probably should.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, 22 years old. I mean, with respect of all those restricted free agents, like, Giddey and Kuminga have the highest ceiling
for sure
of any of those players. They're the youngest. They're they're the super most talented ones, and they both address we talked about it, I think, in the last podcast, just the importance of finding a stretch four, the importance of finding a point guard, like those are the two most desirable positions in all of basketball. And, especially a rim protecting four, which not really what Kuminga is, but certainly a scoring four. They're highly sought after pieces. So if you're Brooklyn, I mean, you probably should. You should at least. But I think that's the thing is I think Giddey realizes that he has a pretty good opportunity in Chicago. I just don't know how. I don't know what that looks like. But they need to get this standoff done. And I mean, because he's perfect for them. I mean, I said that last year when they went and when they traded Caruso. As much as Caruso is incredible and that led to a championship and all these things, like Giddey is the absolute type of player that they should be going after to put with a rebuilding team.
Well, okay, so I guess this leads us to a different topic of discussion, because if we're looking at what restricted free agent looks like today, and then I'm just going to throw this in, like if there's 4 major restricted free agents right now, and there's no money this year, and there's not going to be a ton of money next year with the salary cap not going up a full 10%. So, like, I don't know exactly how many teams have lined up and cleared enough space where they think that next summer they can be a player. But we're already going to look at a free agent class that will have more restricted free agents like this class, right? But then there might be 2 or 3 or even 4 of these guys that are left over from this restricted free agent class that will be unrestricted next season. And then your standard unrestricted free agents, like it is looking more and more like next summer isn't going to be helpful for some of these guys either. And that's where it kind of brings me to the Keon Ellis conversation. Like this might be the point that you strike with Keon Ellis and work out a deal for next summer, because I mean they can start negotiating with Keon right away. They already could have offers on the table to Keon, and I know he wasn't particularly happy that he's playing for $2.2 million or whatever it is this season, because he thought he could have got more out on the open market. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe that he would be in the same exact category that everybody else is. Especially, if he was going to go out on the open market and say someone was going to give him an offer at a mid-level exception, maybe the Kings would have matched. But now we get into this point now where it's like, do you start exchanging numbers right now and try to get Keon just locked up and say, hey, look, this is what the market looks like. This is uncomfortable for everybody, and we'd really like to see you, kind of jump on board with
100%.
something different. And
100%,
like,
you take advantage of it. This is
you're
pointing to them, going, "This we do not want this for you. This is not what we want. We want you in a Kings uniform." Tough part is you have a glut at the position though, and that makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a player that would look phenomenal on a championship team, and also just for him, like the opportunity cost of what somewhere else could look like. I think it'd be hard to not gauge that a little bit of maybe, the market obviously looking bad, but if he got a feel for a team really liking him, then I don't know. I think there's also a scenario where it is in his best interest to try to look somewhere else, depending on obviously what Sacramento's willing to offer right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be intriguing, because I think, again, we have no idea what exactly, the landscape is for Keegan Murray either. Like, I think the Kings are, you don't want to go out there and set your whole value right now for what it's going to look like for next season. But I also think that it's very possible this is a good time to like get into really deep negotiations and try to come up with some solutions for long-term, players who you look at that 2027 cliff that Sean mentioned, but that cliff, there are going to be players that are going with you over that cliff, because that's the way it works.
Yep.
You need to, determine who is part of your core moving forward right now. And Keon and Keegan both seem like guys that are going to be part of that, or at least they should be part of it if the Kings are building something the right way, it seems like. So, I just thought it's interesting that the way that this is all worked out, where again, the money is drying up so quick and nobody really knows what to do. Like it's like the strangest free agency period I've ever seen. But I think it's also like there's a bunch of changes, and It kind of leads me to the next question. Where are you guys at with this team? If this is it, if Kuminga is still on this, is not on this roster, we see Vegas putting their win total at like 35.5 right now. That's not great. Where are you guys at with, if this is a team they're walking into the season with, without a minor tweak here or there, what are your expectations?
It feels fairly high floor, low ceiling, like in high floor, meaning like 11th seed. So maybe that's not fair to even say high, but like, I don't think they're in the gutter of the Western Conference. Who else? I messed up my microphone,
you broke
but
your
I
microphone.
think that they're just going to be extremely mediocre, like good enough and talented enough that on the right nights, they're going to be able to beat some good teams, but they're also going to have their blunders against Charlotte and Washington, like we saw last year. I don't think, again, the cohesiveness of this group is where I get lost a little bit. The Zach and DeMar experience, we've seen this play out a couple times, and if you want to point to their good first half of a season in Chicago, and Dennis Schroeder is not Lonzo Ball, I don't think that there's that many similarities between that. I think Domas is a more, while he can enable Zach and DeMar in certain aspects, that he has more spacing concerns than what they had while they were dealing with Vucevic. I just struggle to see how this functions as a cohesive group that is going to have a reliable identity. I know Scott, that's the big thing Scott Perry keeps saying. They want to have an identity. A lot of what he points to is off the court stuff, but obviously you hope that translates to on the court. But I don't know what we can confidently say that this team is going to be good at night in and night out. And to me, it's hard to not be just pretty dang mediocre when that's the case.
Sean?
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of team that honestly, someone like Tom Thibodeau and Mike Brown would love, in the sense that you have this imbalance, but in order for them to be good, you're going to run your good guys into the ground. In order for this team to be good, you have to rely on a lot of older pieces, scoring options, and capitalize on the regular season, night in, night out. And then hope maybe something goes your way in midseason. Maybe there's a midseason trade, but beyond that, I don't have a lot of confidence in this roster right now. And the other part of saying that is having to run some of these guys in the ground and having to play some of these big minutes in order for this team to conceptually be good, to build up the equity to get into the postseason and possibly avoid the play-in tournament. Injuries like that just kind of is the first thing that pops to mind, where you're relying on some older pieces that you might have to rely big minutes on in order for this team to be successful. And that's a scary thought.
The issue, like the top of the roster, sorry, James, the top of the roster has to be reworked, and it is going to take time before you're going to get offers that you're willing to accept for a Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan. So in the meantime, you try to rekindle their value, and that might mean as simple as just waiting out a year to where there's less on their current deal, or it means they play a little bit better, and then some team is encouraged, like Denver previously interested in him and in Zach LaVine, and maybe that goes out the window now, Cam Johnson conversation. But like, maybe you find a team that is desperate enough of, hey, we just think this piece makes sense at a deadline, but it feels like we're just going to be waiting until they can rework the top of this roster.
Yeah, it's really a tough spot to be in for Scott Perry, and it's a situation he inherited, which sucks. But he knew full well coming in, this is what the team looked like, and that moving pieces wasn't going to be easy. I actually like the detour that we've taken here with Kuminga, because at least it shows you some sort of pathway that they're looking at, and a way for them to get younger. Even if again, if I'm the Kings, it wouldn't have been, like the way that they've sort of developed this trade, it wouldn't have been Malik Monk in my mind. But for whatever reason, Malik Monk doesn't seem to have the value to them that he had to the previous regime. And it's kind of a weird situation to see. But, again, if I have a choice between trading Malik Monk or trading DeMar DeRozan, I'm trading DeMar DeRozan every day of the week, just because he's 35 going on 36.
He'll be 36. Yeah. I'll say this too, James. Like, I think nobody in the walls of that organization will say this, and I don't think any of them believe this, but from a grand picture, from the 50,000-foot view, if you will, like, this season doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like you're Scott Perry, you've taken over, you have Doug Christie as a first-time head coach. There are plenty of things to evaluate, don't get me wrong, but nobody's going out there thinking they're contending for a championship this year. You just have to get to a certain point. I think they've identified what that point is, but there is a lot of decisions that you have to come to a lot of conclusions before you get to that point. And you're going to try any way possible to better situate your roster to get to that point. But so be it. If it's you get to this season and you have to compete and you just put together a competitive roster, there's nothing wrong with that, especially when you're a first-time GM with a first-time head coach, all those things, right? Like, you've got talent, you have plenty of talent. You can see a pathway to where this can be a competitive team. That being said, like, a lot has to go right. A lot has to go right. And, that's why I talk about, in talking to Scott, and Brenden was able to do that. And as well, it's like being able to see that group with a point guard, which they weren't able to see last year, is a genuine curiosity with this team. But the 50,000-foot view for this team doesn't look promising in terms of being able to compete.
It's also like, what else are you supposed to be curious about this year, to be honest?
Well, I would say Keegan Murray again. I think that comes into it, especially if you do extend him. How does Keon Ellis respond with a crowded situation? I mean, you've got two aging pieces in DeRozan and a considerably less aging piece in Levine, but also has a very bloated contract. Like, I think you have ideas of pieces you would like to move, but how do you move those and get better? And that, I think, is the rub. And that's why their path that they've chosen is a frustrating one, but I don't think it's necessarily a difficult one. I think it's just difficult within this moment because the market value on so many of your pieces, and you're thinking to yourself, can you get better within this year if you move some of those pieces? And I just don't think they like the answers that they're getting with that. Then you get into the season, maybe things change. You get into next season, things certainly change. But I think they'd rather see this through than do anything that makes them conceivably worse from a competitive standpoint in the season.
Okay, so we had this discussion earlier on ESPN 1320. And like it was all four of us. So it was me, Dame, Kenny, and Kyle. If you guys get, and like, I think everybody had like such a like all over the board opinion. Vegas has set the over under at 35.5 games. And I think we all kind of see that as like, okay, that's very possible, at least in my mind. I don't even know if I would take the over, because I do see a pathway this season where this team starts to sputter and, maybe they're able to dump one contract, but just take a backward step. And to me, like, there's a much higher percentage of this team kind of going backwards because they want to see what Nick Clifford is. They want to see what Reynaud is. They want to see if Keegan Murray can develop as that bigger piece. And if Keon Ellis can, I could very well see the last 20 games of this season being a throwaway, and looking forward to whatever comes in the 2026 NBA draft, as opposed to pushing for a play-in spot one more time just to get your ass kicked once you get there, or to get your ass kicked in the first round of the playoffs. Do you guys see what I'm talking about there? I mean, again, where are you at with this? The projected Vegas win total of 35.5. Is it fair? Is it unfair? And where would you guys go with this?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think that your idea of, towards the end of the year, embracing your youth and leaning into that a little bit, valuing more of your draft position rather than making in the play-in, makes sense to me. I think that there's a handful of times since I've been covering this team that I thought they should have done that, and I've never really felt like I've seen them do it. So I'm a little hesitant to believe that that's going to be the way they go. I think back to, I forget which draft it is, but when they lost a coin flip with Chicago and ended up with Davion Mitchell instead of Franz Wagner. And if you would have just not taken those last few games as seriously, that maybe that's a different scenario that you're talking about here. So what was it, 35
You could
and a
have
half?
had Kuminga. You could have had Kuminga then.
Could have had Kuminga. then they'd be dealing with this situation. I would take the over. I think narrowly, but 30. It was 35. You said, right?
35 and a half.
Yeah, I think I would take the over. They haven't been under that since Mike Brown had taken over. It was really that Luke Walton year where they won 30 games in 21-22. I think they're just a little bit more talented than that. Not to say that I couldn't see them being under, but I think we're probably talking about more of like a 38-42 win team, maybe.
Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to predict wins. They're just not going to be. I think that that's a. We're in August. Like I feel like we talked about it. This team, as is, a lot has to go right for them. I do think, seeing somebody like Nick Clifford, I don't know. I don't see really a pathway for Reynaud to get in there this season. But to the point of like, oh, they should just get to a point if you're not going to be competitive and just play the young guys. Well, I think that's what they'll do. But the problem is half the league's teams make the playoffs, and then you open that up with more teams that can make the play-in tournament. So if you're in that mix, you have to see that through. So can you do both? I think that's the main thing. I think for Nick Clifford, I think you can do both. With someone like Maxime Reynaud, see you in Stockton. We'll see you next year or whatever.
Probably
like,
more
I just
like
don't
Devin
think
Carter, right?
Yeah, I mean, you need some you need some decisions that have to be made. You have some you obviously are going to go into this situation with a roster imbalance with a lot of talent, but how do you mesh it? How do you get people to play defense? And like, with respect, you've got two of your best defensive players possibly not even being in the rotation. And so what does that look like, right? Like if you have someone like, obviously you've got someone like Keon Ellis and you have someone like Keegan Murray, they're in the rotation. But if you're adding someone like Devin Carter and you're adding somebody like Maxime Reynaud, who does that come at the expense of? So I think there's some interesting decisions that have to be made, but I think you can do both. I think it's possible. I don't think you can. I think a year in Stockton for Maxime Reynaud is going to do him a lot of. I think will do him well to get developed and be able to play at an NBA level, be able to block shots, especially if you weren't that type of player in college. Use your length, use your athleticism, all those things. But with Nick Clifford, he comes off as plug and play to me right out of the gate. And finding rotations, I think moments for him in the rotation and rookie walls and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be different than college. But if all things go well, he should be able to be a guy that is a plug and play player. How many minutes is that? I don't know, especially if you're trying to compete, because if you're trying to compete, and I think he can help them compete, he's not getting 25 minutes a game.
No, I'm with you. I'm not ready to write Reynaud's rookie season off. I do know, they went out and they brought in Drew Eubanks, and Drew Eubanks is not a player that should block another player. If Reynaud is ready to play, maybe a month into the season, maybe 2 months into the season, and your team's not all that successful, I think we could start to see him filter into the lineup more and more. I think Clifford, like you said, is going to play minutes from the jump. Like whether it's 16 or it's 18 or 14 minutes per game, I think we're going to see a considerable amount of him early on in his career, and he's going to get an opportunity to play. At least that's what it looked like coming out of summer league. But also, like that's it. They're really high on him, and rightfully so. I mean, he played really well, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play quite a bit.
How would you? I don't see the Maxime Reynaud thing necessarily boiling to the surface that quickly. Certainly a nice player. I don't see it, especially with the way the team is built. But like, what would you think that would look like? Let's say you're 2 months into the season. Best case scenario, like how does that play out?
To me, it's
my backup center.
Yeah, like if Eubanks, in my mind, it's hey, Eubanks is being very like whatever, not giving us that much. Maybe we're just going to try, like, the moments where you see Mike Brown and other coaches searching, where you give Max an opportunity, or maybe Eubanks goes down or Domas goes down, and you just see him get a little bit of opportunity, a chance essentially to prove it. And if he's giving you if he's shooting threes at a high level and all of a sudden you have a 5-out look that you can go to, then to me it's giving him like a brief opportunity, probably because of a specific scenario that may be going on. And if he were to capitalize on it, I tend to lean a little bit more towards you, Sean, where I think it'll take time. But
Right.
also, to James's point, like Drew Eubanks isn't going to stop you. If Maxime is impressing, then you're going to insert him over Drew.
Yeah, and the other thing is I just don't see them going so deep into the roster like that. I just don't see this team relying on 2 first-year players that way, you know. And I think he's so much more yeah, I was gonna say circumstantial, careful, opportunistic,
Okay.
like depending upon what your opposition looks like. I just see them going smaller than bigger more often than not, especially in this first year for Reno. I'm not trying to take away from the kid's talent and his future with this team. I think they're high on him. I'm not trying to say that they're not. I just think that there's definitely going to be an evolution period to him and his game to the NBA level. And I just don't see someone like him. So, for example, if Saric is on the roster and he's healthy, he does address a need. You know, he can, if he can be what he did with the Warriors, fantastic. But that's going to be asking a lot. Like, I'm not betting on that, right? But I would bet on that before seeing Maxime Reynaud necessarily right out of the gate getting rotational minutes. And I just don't think they're going to, I think more times than not, because of the way the roster's set up, that they're going to go smaller.
Are you talking about Max at the 4?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying I don't think that they're going to go with so much size, especially with a first-year player like that, as he adapts to the NBA level. Like I think they'll bet on their vets. You know, someone like Eubanks, who was a terrific rebounder and screener, someone like Saric who can stretch the floor. Like Dario Saric, if you look back, like with the Warriors, like I've talked about, he's been really good. Denver, he couldn't get off the bench, and it puzzled some people. But he's also, again, availability is just never. It's just never there. Like it's tough. Never always. The durability of Dario Saric is not huge.
I might tone down the really good with Golden State, but I definitely get what you're saying. There's a value somewhere in there potentially, and I think on the Max end, like there definitely is growing pains because this guy was a primary scorer at Stanford, and like there's just no world where that's happening at the NBA.
No,
like
not at all.
You know,
Yeah.
Coach Smith is talking about like, oh, I think he's more Lauri Markkanen than a I'm forgetting the name, but like even more like Kelly Olynyk ish. But I just think that defensively there needs to be a lot of growth, and now he gets to put his primary focus on that end, or at least a lot of his focus on that end. And it's probably best, obviously, to get those reps in Stockton and slowly work your way up. But for how much he's touted as an extremely intelligent guy, works super hard, takes a lot of pride on both ends of the floor, like I have faith in that defense improving. But that definitely, like his NBA role is so much different than his collegiate role that I do think there will be that growing period.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be growing pains, but I also like, look, he does a couple of things that like are intriguing. And to be honest, Eubanks really doesn't. Like Eubanks is just a placeholder until you have anything better. And
Until
that
someone
could
like
be,
him's ready. Yeah.
yeah, it could be Isaac Jones that steps in and says, hey, I want those minutes. It could be someone else. I'm not banking on Dario Saric playing at all. And I don't think they acquired him to play him. They acquired him to save $5 million. And I would actually be pretty surprised if he was on this roster. I think there's a higher likelihood of waiving him and stretch provisioning him, because the Kings are going to need that like $3.5 million to stay under the luxury tax, because they're already right there at the luxury tax, and that's a problem. Especially like I think they're at or like maybe 100,000 over the luxury tax right now, and that's with like Terrence Davis's contract counting in there. So that probably won't happen. Like Terrence probably won't be on the squad.
Right.
But they're actually over the luxury tax when you factor in the DeMar DeRozan and Domantas Sabonis bonuses. And so for like luxury tax purposes today, it gets calculated at the end of the year, but as of today, they're over, and they're not going to be over the luxury tax for a team that projects to win between 35 and 42 games, right? So, all right, we're not going to keep this one. We're not going to keep going today. We're not going to make this a super long podcast. Let's get to some final thoughts. What do you guys got for final thoughts?
Go ahead, Sean.
Well, the whole thing was a business of basketball, right?
It was. Today was kind of a whole entire business of basketball. Yeah.
Yeah. Final thoughts would be I had a cool moment to catch up with Jalen Wells, and after seeing him take that spill in what was it, March or April, when he broke his wrist and looked like he hit his head and had to get stretchered off the floor. The fact that he played summer league after just a stellar rookie season and being able to like the wrist is not an issue anymore. Like it's crazy that that's all that came of that. But yeah, just a young man from Sacramento who had an unbelievable impact with the Memphis Grizzlies and their future. And yeah, how does someone like that get to the second round? But it shows the ability, or it shows just how crazy the draft can be with, time and place and circumstance and making the most of opportunities to where he can come in as a second round pick and start right away. Really is really impressive. And, the Sacramento connection is there, but also you mentioned, his Maxime Reynaud's coach at Stanford was his coach in Washington State with him and Isaac Jones. So maybe that bodes well for maybe somebody like Maxime Reynaud as he hopes to make the most of opportunity that might be provided for him with Sacramento. So yeah, it was just really cool to kind of get caught up with him. He had his first camp in Sacramento with some kids, and trust me, we've all been to plenty of camps where a guy might be there for an hour, might take some pictures, might do whatever. Jalen was very, very involved. So it was kind of cool. It's over at Sac High, which he didn't go to. He was a Folsom high school product, but to see him just the other day was pretty good. And we got
cool.
NFL right around the corner. It's been a lot of football coming up.
Oh yeah.
Kind of been what I've been doing the most, I think, right lately. That, and shout out Anthony Fluffy Hernandez from Woodland, Dunnigan, Sacramento area. He's going to be a headliner at UFC next weekend on Saturday. So that'll be fun to see if he can. He's on a big fight streak right now. He might get it if he wins this fight. I think he might have a title shot in maybe later this year, early next year.
Nice. Brenden, what do you got? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I will also be doing more Niner stuff coming up. Are you going to be out there Saturday, Sean? I might see you. But looking forward to doing that a little bit more through as the season comes up. But I don't really have too much. Shocker. Cool to see De'Aaron get paid by San Antonio. It's also really funny when we're having this whole conversation, like we just did the whole pod talking about Scott inheriting a not great scenario. I feel like this would look a lot differently if he also had De'Aaron sitting there as a piece to work with rather than Zach LaVine, who we're talking about needing to wait before you can figure out a deal there. So, that always brings back that reminder a little bit there. Also, for what it's worth, there's a bunch of speculation on like his injury thing going on. It's not going into next season. Like everybody's all concerned about like it being a season long thing. It's not going to be, it's not a season long injury. It is the case there, but San Antonio is an interesting situation for him all around, I will say. So cool to see him get paid. And yeah, I'm excited to get some tacos with Sean tonight.
So what you're saying is a Spurs reporter isn't accurate, saying that De'Aaron Fox could be out for most of the season?
It will not be the whole
hamstring with a hamstring injury?
The only thing I'll add, because I thought it was kind of a weird way that it seemed to all play out, is that pretty much at Summer League, because you saw De'Aaron out there and everybody on the Spurs, they did a team building exercise. And during the team building exercise is where De'Aaron got hurt, which, adds to some of the complications when like in the middle of negotiating a contract. And
what was said
in
exercise?
I believe it was some sort of Navy SEAL training. Then they went into playing football. And while they were playing football is where the injury happened. A lot of non-basketball things. So,
wow.
Do we know what it is?
Hamstring.
It is a hamstring. Yeah, I mean, that's what I had heard. It was hamstring, but I don't know how bad it was.
I do think it will mess up. It will take him out for most of the offseason, potentially into training camp, but not into the season.
I think they'll be, especially for a guy who's completely reliant on speed. I think training camp is going to be a very delicate one for him. I don't think it's going to be what he's been used to in previous seasons. I think they're going to, and look, they can afford it. They can take their time with him. I think, to be honest, I think he does ramp slowly into the season. But is it a concern? Is it something that they're going to, oh no, like all hope is lost? No, the season will be fine.
There we go. Okay, final thoughts from James.
Here we go.
I am hanging out with John Santiago this evening.
Who's
he
that?
just came in and joined me here at the house. John Santiago was my partner at Cowbell Kingdom for 5 years. He is an all-time character.
Yes.
Sean knows Sean well. For those of you who remember the first 5 years of this podcast, it was me and John Santiago. So I'm excited to see him. He's actually just came in. He's on the other side. Let me see if I can get him to come over.
Is he staring at you right now?
No, he's not. I'm going to see if I can get him to come in and wave at the camera. Hang on one sec.
We don't need that. The audio listener doesn't care. Oh, look, James he went off mic too.
I'm back.
He's back.
Let's see. He's coming. He's coming in. Here is the great
John
Why
don't you get up and let him sit down so I can say hello?
Stepping into the studio.
Yeah,
I can hear him.
Yeah.
Hi, what's up, guys? I haven't been on this podcast in like
Let me see if you can hear.
10 years, I think it was, when it was still the Cowbell Kingdom podcast presented by the True Hoop Network.
What happened there? What happened there?
John.
Oh, you know what happened. I moved to Las Vegas and, moved on to other endeavors,
Huh.
So other things you remember those days, Sean.
I do. I do.
We won't speak of what we did during Summer League during those days. No. No. Come on, man. Don't just put it all on me. But no.
It was all on John.
That I have grown a lot since then.
That is unfortunate.
This is, of course, Brenden. I don't think you've ever met Brenden.
I've never met Brenden, but of course I know your work, man. So
I've heard a lot about you.
Yeah. There we go.
Hopefully good things.
All right,
Legends
we're going to wrap up this podcast, but say goodbye, John.
All right, take care, everybody. I hope you guys, Kings fans, I know that it's kind of bleak right now, but this is what I was always accustomed to when I was covering the team for more than a decade. So, if you just came on board a couple of years ago when the Kings were, making the playoffs for the first time in many years, this is kind of par for the course, unfortunately.
Yep. Brennan's going to get a new lesson in craziness. All right. Well, hey, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind on the way out the door. Subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. Are we good? I think so. Sean's taking a drink. You guys have fun at Taco Tuesday. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Kings Beat podcast. So for KCRA 3, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you soon.
Oh.